Good morning, everybody. A very warm welcome to the business panel, one of the most important themes that Shaping Portsmouth tackles to support the city. I'm Mark Pembleton, Economic Growth Manager at Portsmouth City Council, and also a Director of Shaping Portsmouth, leading on this business theme. Today, we have an excellent panel to discuss future opportunities for business in Portsmouth. I'm really happy that we've got Tristan Samuels, who's our Director of Regeneration at Portsmouth City Council, Kate Cloud, who's the Local Growth Programme Manager at Solent Local Enterprise Partnership, and Nicky Bailey, Federation of Small Business Development Manager for Dorset and Hampshire. The panel will give short, sharp presentations on this topic. Then we'll have a time for questions. And as Steph quite rightly said, the idea is if you put your questions in the chat function, and then what I'm going to try and do is to pick those up and then ask the relevant panel member. If you've got a particular panel member that you want to address the question to, then please feel free to do so. So if I can first of all ask Tristan to step forward and share his presentation and address the conference, please.
Excellent. So I'm Tristan Samuels. I am the Director of Regeneration here at Portsmouth City Council. You've already heard from Councillor Pitt and Pam in terms of a lot of the stuff that we've been doing, but I just wanted to elaborate on a few bits. Clearly, we've been busy in the last year, and I just want to explain a little bit why we've been busy. So last year, well, actually back in 2019, we set out to, and we're here, I think, at the last Shaping Portsmouth conference. We brought the Economic Development and Regeneration Strategy Action Plan to you. It was built back in those times where everyone was very focused on local industrial strategies, and was built on those 5 themes, not too dissimilar to the LEP's own industrial strategy. The first theme was around a great waterfront city, so building the brand, and you've heard from Pam and Councillor Pitt on that already. Ideas, this was about innovation, research and development, and how we could support those people. Skill strategies, addressing low educational attainment and high economic inactivity in the area. Infrastructure, things like the public transport links, public transport infrastructure, housing offers, and just the local place, increased digital connectivity, and lastly, the business environment. So if I can take you through some of the things that we've been busy doing. City Vision we've heard from. You should know that the City Vision obviously will now sort of set the scene for a lot of the council's decisions going forward, and actually will feed directly into the local plan, which we have the local plan Reg 18 consultation, which should be with us here in March. Hopefully you'll all get involved in that one. We've launched our own, or relaunched our Invest Portsmouth website, and we have a few videos on there, please. So if there's anything you feel you need to hear more on from today, please have a look there. And the team has been busy, even with COVID restrictions on travel. They are unperturbed, have managed to set up inward investment conferences, and the next one we have coming up now is with Halifax in Canada. So busy times, exciting times. So what have we achieved? Some of you would have noticed the coastal defence works have started. This was a £117 million project with the Environment Agency, the LEP and Council all providing some funding. It's going to run for around 6 years and hopefully improve around 4.5 kilometres of, or protect, I should say, 4.5 kilometres of the seafront to obviously upgrade the sea defences, but also act as a real catalyst for change in those areas. And the bits I'm really excited about are those streams that are running in parallel, the arts programs and the enhancement programs, which I think will turn it into a world-class attraction. I should also note that we've done about 1.5 kilometres of coastal defence around Tipner, and that includes upgrades to walking and cycling routes. And we've got more work to do on the eastern side of the island this spring. SEARCH, which is Southeast Hampshire Rapid Transport, which was a £56 million funding that we've achieved through transforming cities. And this is about walking, cycling, and public transport links from Portsmouth into Hampshire, links to Gosport and the Isle of Wight through the ferries as well. So an exciting project. Future transport zones funding. This was a combined bid with Southampton, and basically we'll focus on things like last mile distribution centres, both macro and micro, e-scooter trials, drone trials. So really sort of quite exciting stuff and forward-looking stuff. City Fibre, this gigabit connectivity project. A lot of you will have seen during the pandemic, a lot of our roads being dug up, our pavements. I certainly have experienced a few drops in my digital infrastructure locally, and hopefully what this will do is pull us into a brand new world of gigabit connectivity. Looking elsewhere, obviously Dunsbury Park is an incredibly exciting industrial park. The council has funded up in Havant. Last year we had new tenants in there, Breeze and DHL, and during the pandemic, the council was able to secure its largest new tenant to date, which is a company called Watson Marlow, who are a manufacturer of medical equipment. So that has been a big win for us. The council is now looking to bring forward another 50,000 square foot of spec development, and we're actually starting to work on a master plan to expand the site with another 250,000 square feet, which hopefully we will take into Havant planners later this year. The port's been busy too. We've completed their berth 2 improvements, which allows much larger ships to dock there. They've also been very focused now on new border control model to deal with the tighter Brexit controls, and that goes on. I think we've got quite a lot of work to do between now and the 1st of July. And we've also seen some new trade routes opening up. I'm sure I see Ian's on the call, and he'd be happy to answer questions on how business is booming for the port in this new Brexit world. And then Lakeside, most of you will know that we bought Lakeside a little while ago, and I'm pleased to say that it's continue to be quite resilient. And we actually had a new letting, which is the largest letting on the south coast last year. Kinto, a car leasing company, who joined us, and we're very proud to have them on board. So as a regeneration team, we've done a bit as well. I suppose we should talk about some of the regeneration opportunities. You would have seen the council made a decision to finally demolish the 2 towers at Horatio and Leamington houses in Somerstown. And hopefully that will start in March, along with a consultation with residents about what to put back. A real co-design opportunity there. We're also looking at a couple of other spaces up in the north of the borough, and hopefully we'll have more to announce in the spring. The council has led, or the council company has led on planning applications to secure around 105 homes in the last year. We've completed around 23 units, and we're on site on 2 more sites at the moment. So hopefully more to talk about there. In terms of our skills and labour market, Portsmouth Council approved its skills and labour market strategy for 2025, which basically is part of the action plan that we have in terms of the economic growth and regeneration strategy. I will look forward to seeing some progress on that shortly. We'll talk about it a bit more later, I'm sure. And the Future High Streets Fund, which Councillor Pitt spoke about as well. So successful in 2 bids, 1 for Fratton and 1 for Commercial Road, to the tune of about 6.9 million. So we can't talk about what we did without talking about the pandemic. Clearly, it's been a tough year for everyone, and it's been a tough year for the council as well. On top of all that work they've been doing, which I would call our business as usual, we've just playing our part in trying to support the city in its response to the pandemic, working very closely with the Local Resilience Forum, and a number of you in various ways. So what have we been up to? Mark's team specifically has supported the business helpline, and they've taken over 4,300 calls since that opened. It's been a real lifeline to a lot of businesses, and they've been incredibly good at signposting and directing people to make sure that they are able to secure grant. And that's obviously been quite critical. So in terms of grants, they've managed to disperse around £39 million worth of grant, with a number we expect to be able to move another 28.5 million quite soon. And obviously, as long as the pandemic lasts, there appears to be government funding, so I'm sure that number will go up. Their weekly business bulletins are now up to 4,100 businesses on their mailing list, which is incredible. And hopefully all those businesses are feeling the benefit of that. Within that team, we also have Jane Lemaire, and Jane has led Steve mentioned the JET program, but she's also doing the Kickstart program as well. And I believe in December we had around 50 people already signed up for that from the council. Oh, excuse me. And then obviously we've also been involved working with the LRF on things like the COVID testing centres up at Tipner and North Harbour. I can also say that we're working on vaccination centres with them as well, and I believe we should have one opening up shortly at St James's, and I believe there are more testing centres to come as well, probably looking at more asymptomatic testing for frontline services. The economic growth team has also looked at how we support businesses in a more physical manner, created social distance spaces for walking and cycling. So you saw that on the seafronts, and you've seen it in some of the high streets. They've also supported the reopening of the high streets. Some of you will remember those long queues in Commercial Road when the high streets first reopened, and this team was fundamental in helping all of those businesses get themselves COVID friendly and able to support and work with the crowds in those environments. We've employed COVID marshals, which has been incredibly useful to ensure that businesses are operating safely and enforcing where necessary. But I'm pleased to say that there hasn't been too necessarily. We also gave free parking to the NHS and voluntary groups supporting COVID patients, excuse the typo, like the Hive. And I think that's my quick canter through, Mark. Hopefully you all heard that.
That is great. Thank you very much, Tristan. Okay, we'll take questions at the end of the three presentations. So without more ado, can I just ask Kate Cloud, who is our local growth program manager at the Solent Local Enterprise Partnership, to share her presentation and speak to the conference, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Cloud, local growth program manager at Solent LEP. I'm here to talk a bit about what the LEP has been doing and what the LEP continues to do, as Mark said earlier. I just want to, before I sort of move on to the slides properly, preface that with a lot of what we do is giving out grants. That's not the only thing we do, but probably that's a lot of what I'll talk about today. That includes the £183 million local growth deal that we've been working on for some years now. The deadline for us to spend that is actually March this year. So this is proving to be a particularly busy quarter at the moment. We were also awarded last year £16 million of Getting Building Fund, which I'll expand on later. And the deadline for that is March 2022. So there's no sign of let up in our workload at the moment, but bear with me, I shall explain all. So what I plan to go through this morning is just a bit about the larger investments we've made in the Portsmouth area to date, a bit of an update on those. Some response to the COVID-19 that's basically taken up the last year for all of us, I think, and a bit about our plans going forward, which is the Solent 2050 aspect. So investments in Portsmouth to date, well, more than £26 million of funds have flown through our offices, have been invested in Portsmouth since 2015. You can see the list of projects there. That represents a target of over 1,000 new jobs, amongst other outputs such as homes, commercial and training floor space, business engagement and support, and many more. Of the list there, the Hard, Dunsbury Park, the BAE Marine Engineer Workshop and the Future Technology Centre have sort of finished their main work, and they're still reporting their outputs to us. And the others are still sort of work in progress. The National Maritime Systems Centre and Innovation and Collaboration Hub is virtually complete, actually, but the others are still sort of work in progress. I'm not going to dwell on this for too long. I just wanted to make a point really that there's been an awful lot of investment in the area of some fantastic projects, and that doesn't even mention the SMEs who we've supported as well, which is far too long a list for me to mention here today. So moving on to COVID then, something that we've all faced challenges dealing with. The stats you see on the screen there are just some to kind of highlight the impact in the local area. Although our growth has been comparable with the national average over the last year or so, Solent area has been hit particularly hard with the hospitality and tourism sector restrictions, and that's something that we try to focus our efforts on a bit. Another sort of illustration of the impact it's had is that employment is down at the moment, and job postings in mid-November were around 55% of where they were the year before. So these are just sort of indicators of the impact COVID has had. We also have very sort of anecdotal evidence from the businesses we're in touch with, as I'm sure everyone has their own sort of stories to tell. But the pandemic clearly had an extreme and very immediate effect on businesses across the Solent area, and certainly within Portsmouth as well. So what do we do about it? Well, we last year developed a recovery plan. This was probably after the first lockdown, and we didn't really, I don't think anyone really sort of saw exactly what was going to come with the second lockdown and now the third lockdown. As a result, you may just be able to make out along the bottom of the screen there's a 6, 12 and 24 month timescale. Clearly, we have not gone direct from survival to stability to growth. We've had to take step backs and go back to survival with each lockdown, and also recognise that each business, each project that we're supporting is at a different stage on that journey. Nevertheless, they're the three sort of pillars, if you like, of our recovery plan that we're focusing on, the three sort of stages. In terms of supporting bigger projects and with grant funding through the pandemic, we were awarded £60 million of government funding through the Getting Building Fund. And you can see on the top half of the screen the 5 projects that we're working with at the moment to get that money spent and get some investment into the local area to support recovery. The eagle-eyed among you will note that those amounts do not amount to 16 million, and that's what there's a little bit left to allocate at the moment, which we are working on. You also see at the bottom there the headline outputs from those projects as well. The one of particular interest, I'm sure, to everyone here will be the enzymes project, the University of Portsmouth Centre for Enzyme Innovation, well, the expansion actually of the Centre for Enzyme Innovation. That is £1 million of investment, and the targets there for 5 new jobs, 290 metres of research and development floor space, and around 20 businesses supported. It's a really exciting project. It's about expanding the facilities already at the centre to increase their capacity to research and tackle plastic pollution. And not just that, but to make the leap, or help businesses make the leap from research to products and innovations that can be taken to market, so that we then create a circular economy for plastic recycling. So I'm sure everyone will agree that's an excellent aim to have. Moving swiftly on to the sort of other end of the scale, the support for very small businesses. We've worked with Crowdfunder since March last year, actually, to get funding out to SMEs. Originally, it was the Pay It Forward scheme. Now we've sort of rebranded that Crowdfund Solent and slightly broadened it. And clearly, Portsmouth City Council had their own Crowdfunder scheme as well. So we've sort of tried to not duplicate that, but work with Portsmouth on that scheme. But the Crowdfund Solent, or Solent Pay It Forward scheme, it's been about 50% grant funding to SMEs up to a limit of £5,000. Actually, for the very micro SMEs, it's been a limit of £2,000. And the purpose of that has been to help them continue to trade during lockdown, which is often about trading online, or perhaps hospitality businesses pivoting to offering takeaway services, for example, or indeed to adapt to new government guidelines coming out. So, for example, the social distancing rules and making sure plastic screens were available, or extra cleaning facilities and so on. The stats on the bottom 4 points there are for across the Solent. And in terms of how that translates to Portsmouth particularly, there's, let me see, 11 businesses supported in Portsmouth with a LEP investment of just over £27,000, which has leveraged crowdfunding of just over £56,000, which is really great to see that level in the local area. A couple of examples of projects we've supported through crowdfunding for you. Excuse me, in the Portsmouth area. Everybody Pilates, they raised funds for new online video subscription service over lockdown so that they could continue to deliver services to their clientele. And it also added another revenue stream for the business in the long term. They got £5,000 from us and raised more than £13,000 from the crowd. A second one, who I'm sure many people know, Solent Sky Services. They were raising funds to produce a feature-length documentary about Portsmouth during the lockdown, and that's helped their business survive 2020 and achieve further brand awareness for them for the long term. We awarded them £2,000 and they raised more than £5,000 from the crowd. Beyond the direct funding there, or in some cases, this is funding, there are a whole host of other business support offers that we've put out there. The text here is purposely blue and underlined because they're live links, and I'm sure the slides will be circulated after the conference, and you'll be able to sort of click through those links to find out a bit more. I'm not going to go through each one of these now, but it's safe to say there has been and continues to be a whole raft of support out there for businesses during what has been an incredible year. What challenges we've faced and what innovation we've seen as well. It's been fantastic from that point of view. At the bottom of that slide, you'll see very purposefully actually something about the Brexit transition and overseas trade hub, which I'd like to draw your attention to. Whilst clearly that's not a COVID specific thing, it's also a major feature of the economic landscape at the moment. Please do, for anyone who has any questions about Brexit, please do click on that link when it comes around and seek support. There's again a raft of expertise out there that you can plug into to find out how Brexit will affect you. Even if you're not trading overseas, there may well be sort of effects on you with its supply chains or all sorts. So do check it out and make sure that you're prepared. And then lastly, I wanted to come on to our strategic priorities. So this is the sort of looking forward bit. I'm not going to read out every single one here. Everyone can do that for themselves. But this was really developed in October last year. We had 6 strategic priorities then for Solent 2050. And it was actually the pandemic and the challenges we faced over the last year that have added the 7th one at the bottom there, the health and well-being priority. I think that's really important to add in. Version 2 of our 2050 strategy is coming to our board in February for sort of decision and sign off, and we intend to publish that in March. The 2020, oh sorry, I'm going to go back one, gone too far. The 2050 strategy has been developed in consultation with stakeholders, and Shaping Portsmouth has been a key part of that through our business task force. So thank you very much for everyone's input. I want to just pick out a couple of points here in particular. Whilst these priorities are not in a ranked order at all, I would like to make the point that the marine and maritime economy priority, the one actually, as it happens, at number 1, is for us our number 1. It really is world leading, and it's something that we continue to boast about wherever we can and support wherever we can, and we make no apologies for that. The other point I wanted to mention was number 4 there, the thriving visitor and cultural economy. I think we're going to look to put the word creative in there as well. We recognise that's so important, particularly for Portsmouth actually, but across the Solent LEP area. So that will be looking to change and include creative as well. I think I'm done, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate. Just on time. Excellent. Okay, I'd like to now hand over to Nicky Bailey, who's the Federation of Small Businesses Development Manager for Dorset and Hampshire. So, Nicky, would you like to present to the conference, please? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's absolutely lovely to be here, and I'm just going to share my screen. But before I do, just to give you an overview, I look after about 9,500 businesses across the Wessex area, of which 5,000 or so are in Hampshire and about 500 in the city of Portsmouth. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit this morning about how our small businesses in the Portsmouth area have adapted to COVID-19 and what lessons can we learn for the future of small businesses. Before I do that, I think it's really important to give you a bit of context and just to talk a little bit about, how businesses have been impacted by COVID. So what I'm going to do is just very quickly give you a snapshot from our data, which has come from the end of December 2020. So unsurprisingly, confidence levels among small businesses in the Southeast have reached their lowest level since the first quarter of the year. Which, obviously that's not a surprise to anybody given, the climate that we've been through for the past 12 months. We did see a small recovery in around sort of Q2, Q3, but since then confidence levels have steadily been declining. The lack of confidence in this area it's about on par with the rest of the country, to be honest. But in actual fact, businesses in our area are actually slightly above average when compared to the rest of the country in terms of the overall confidence. So just moving on to give you a little bit of an idea of how business conditions have affected businesses. So profit levels for small business owners were obviously adversely affected in line with the situation that we've all been part of. So in Q4, over half, 59% of small businesses reported a decrease in their profits over the previous 3 months, so sort of October to December period. And by comparison, 21% of small businesses reported an increase in their profits. Again, profits were pretty much in line with the rest of the country. While the impact on the profit in the Southeast area is reflective of the country as a whole, the outlook for the future profit in our area is actually not quite as pessimistic as the rest of the UK. So there's a slight positive there. So moving on to how employment and growth has been affected. So the employment picture across our members over the preceding 3 months has showed that 21% of our members have decreased their staff numbers, while 7% have actually increased their employment levels. However, over 2/3 of small business staffing levels have actually been unaffected, and 68% have reported that their staffing levels have actually stayed the same. So looking ahead to the next quarter, what our members have told us is that the intention is for 11% of businesses to increase their headcount and 14% to decrease staff numbers. So that just gives you a little bit of a snapshot. So after the first lockdown, FSB did a report actually looking at how small businesses were adapting and responding to the crisis. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of what we've actually seen in our membership as to how businesses have actually adapted and got through the crisis. So really importantly, I think to recognise one of the main things that businesses have been doing is carrying out really vital community roles. And we can see here by the statistics that 57% of small businesses are carrying out community roles during the crisis, which is a lot. And I'm sure everybody, can think about the small businesses that they know and think about, some of the ways in which they've got involved, with the community over the past 12 months. 30% of all small business owners have prioritised and supported vulnerable customers, and 19% of those have been offering free home deliveries. Now, bearing in mind, this report that I'm talking to you about now was actually taken after the first lockdown. So I think actually, you know, we've seen a lot of these figures have actually risen as opposed to dropped. 24% of small firms have been donating to local food banks, and 23% helping key workers by providing things like PPE and volunteering and offering accommodation and that sort of thing. So one of the really, really important things that, you know, I think pretty much every business has had to do in response to the crisis is increase their digital engagement. So 16% of our members have actually developed or they've either added a new or increased their online presence. And 24% have actually adopted digital technologies to help them work from home. So things like Zoom, which obviously we're all using, Microsoft Teams. And, you know, I think the figure that we've reported here, which was 24% at the first lockdown, was looking ahead for businesses that were looking to remain open, was actually increased to 39%. And I think, you know, we've probably seen an even further increase since these figures were taken. So new products and services. So of course, you know, adaptation involves looking at your services, looking at your products, and 10% of businesses have diversified into producing new services or products during the lockdown period. 6% of small businesses have looked at diversifying into producing new products or goods. And 9% started making deliveries to customer homes. And again, you know, I think these figures have only risen over the past, certainly over the past sort of 6 months. Business practices and processes. So 30% of small businesses reported that they've altered their business practices to accommodate working from home. And 14% have made structural changes to allow social distancing. So things like, you know, putting screens up, and, you know, PPE for the staff, and, you know, having to just maybe have 2 customers in their shops rather than, you know, unlimited, which would have happened previously. So, you know, that's really made an impact for small businesses. And actually that was really quite a costly thing for businesses to have to do, you know, and it's been really a frustration for a lot of small businesses, given the sort of subsequent lockdowns that we've had and the tier structures. So leadership and management skills are really vital in a crisis situation. And 51% of the businesses that we spoke to, our members, reported that leadership and management skills are the most important skills for their future growth. 53% have invested or introduced improvements to working practices. 75% set strategy for the company themselves. And 45% determine the strategy depending on actual analysis of the business situation rather than just gut instinct. So to put all this into context, I wanted to just give you a local example, local case study of a business in our community that's really adapted to this situation. And it's actually a very typical example of the journey that a lot of small businesses have taken. So Faz Ahmed is the owner of the Akash restaurant in Southsea. So pre-COVID, the Akash was mainly an eating-in restaurant doing very little takeaway business. The Akash never closed during the pandemic, but instead it adapted. So when the first lockdown happened, Faz, the owner of the business, very quickly adapted to focus on takeaways. He negotiated rates with Just Eat, Uber Eats and Deliveroo, as they have large marketing power and were able to offer customers good discounts to encourage them to go through their channels. Although Akash had done a small level of takeaway before COVID, it was almost like starting a new business for Faz and the team. Things were much different and they had to learn as they went along. They did make mistakes along the way, but they learned from them and improved from them. So they employed more drivers. Stock levels had changed, but Faz had predicted actually the panic buying and the likelihood of the fact that there would be shortage of raw materials. So what they did was they took advantage of the fact that they did have space to store products, and they did stockpile some raw materials, which saved them a lot of money in the long term. Getting food to takeaway customers quick and hot is a challenge when you're used to running your business in a restaurant setting. So Faz had to retrain the team. For example, the kitchen porter had no dishes to wash. So the bulk of his work was gone. So he was retrained, and he was retrained to prep food and cook things like rice. New health and safety guidelines were introduced, so staff had to wear PPE and adhere to rigorous hand washing and sanitising and all of the things that we're now really familiar with. Again, this was a big training requirement for the business. The Akash's key trading hours have now completely changed as the takeaway demand is much earlier in the evening. This has meant that they had to change their hours of operation. They've had to implement marketing campaigns. So they've done things with Uber Eats, and they've negotiated advertising with about 100,000 plus followers on their social media networks. The reason this is so important is because this was a real changing situation. There was so much confusion and uncertainty about what was going on. Some businesses were closed, some businesses were open. So getting that message out that the business was open was really vital to the Akash. And finally, Faz and the Akash team fed hundreds of homeless people and nurses at the QA hospital throughout the pandemic. And Faz said, it's always important to give back to the community because without them, they have no business. So I think that sort of pulls really all of the things that we've seen businesses do to adapt. So lessons, what have we learned, to take forward from this crisis situation? So I think one of the things that we're, really clear on is our small businesses play such a vital role to our communities. They really are the lifeblood. Small businesses, they can adapt, they do adapt, and they really can be agile and respond, to what's going on. And actually, it's those businesses that are quick to adapt that do really well in this sort of situation. Digitalisation has been absolutely vital to our small businesses. Without this technology, without this sort of, Zoom technology that we're all using now, it would be, a very different situation. Things like the use of social media and, e-commerce have been absolutely critical. Diversification, businesses that stand still and don't look at how they can respond to the market have been the ones that have really, really struggled through this period. But those who have been very agile and adapted and looked to change, some of them have seen actually quite a lot of success. And skills, having to refresh your skills all the time has been absolutely critical. So I just wanted to end really on a quote, which was from Charles Darwin, and I think it kind of sums it up really. And it's not the strongest of the species that survive, and it's not the most intelligent, but it is the one that is the most responsive to change. And I will leave it there. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nicky. Okay, I've got 3 questions that have come through so far. So first one's for Tristan. So Tristan, someone asked, you didn't really mention the Tipner project. Could you just let people know where that one's up to?
So Tipner's been bubbling along in the background. Lots has happened. It remains a fantastic opportunity to do things differently. And if you think about some of the stuff that came through the city vision, I think this is going to be one of those real opportunities to actually bring some of that to life. It's a real shop window for the city council. Recently, the focus has been very much, because you break it down into bits, we've very much been focused on the marine maritime employment angle, and we're looking at the opportunities that could come forward there with the deep water access and the fact that it's such a fantastic site in the Solent. I think we don't really want to say too much because there's a long journey to go, but I mean the early indications that it could reveal around 1,500 jobs if it all goes well. But obviously there's a long journey to go with Tipner. There are a number of challenges, and I mentioned the local plan. Obviously it needs to get through the local plan, so there will be further tests that are required past that with the IROP and all those sort of things. So it's a journey. It's something we're really excited about. It's something that I think you'll all be really excited about at some point. We are fully aware of some of the tensions around the natural habitat, and Tipner's commitment is to work with those bodies and those individuals to make sure that actually we get the best possible solution. We're certainly engaging heavily with the DEFRA family, which is the Natural England and the environment agencies, and they are supportive so far, and they're pushing us hard to get the best value out of it. And obviously we will start doing more work with stakeholders as we can going forward. But yeah, so I didn't mention it because it's been a little bit quiet and in the background, having done quite a lot of consultation the year before. But hopefully with the local plan, that'll start to generate some more interest again, and hopefully you'll all engage at that point. Hope that's
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Tristan. I've got a question for you, Kate, that's come through. You mentioned creative. What will this mean in real terms?
The short answer is I don't know. The longer answer is I think we're at the start of this journey with our 2050 strategy, and getting it in there, I think, is a sort of a bit of a coup in itself. So I think I'm going to leave people who are more knowledgeable about our strategy to answer that. It might be something I have to sort of take away and come back on. But I think we're so very focused at the moment on delivering the funds and the projects that we're already doing at the moment, and the sort of strategy bit is, whilst it's looking forward and the next step, I'm not sure exactly what that will translate to. It really depends a bit about what other funding comes forward to us from government. So watch this space. I will try and get a better answer that can be circulated after this event.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate. A question for you, Nicky. Very interesting presentation. What does it mean for the services that you kind of make available for your FSB members? As you said, you've got 500 in Portsmouth, and I know many of them they're really excited about being part of the FSB, and you provide a lot of services. I assume because of the changes and how small businesses have adapted, have you thought about changing your services for businesses and what you might provide to them?
So yeah, I mean, we've actually got some fantastic benefits that have really come into their own throughout the coronavirus crisis. So where businesses have had loads of questions about, what to do about staff contracts, about employment issues, health and safety issues, we've been able to help them. And one of the really important things that's come through recently is we've got a real mental health crisis going on at the moment, and a lot of small business owners have been under huge amounts of pressure. And one of the things that is very well used at the moment is our FSB Care service, which gives business owners access to a specialist nurse, actually, that they can talk to, they can vent some steam to, and they can, following on from that, potentially get some therapy services as well. So that, combined with our late payment support, we can help businesses with, actually being able to get paid on time, because that's a real challenge, particularly at the moment for businesses. So it's not so much that we've introduced new services, but the services that we operate already have really been utilised by our members. And I think importantly as well, just having that local person that you can come to, which is myself, and asking questions of the grant situation. Obviously, Mark and I, we talk a lot, don't we? If I have an issue from a member. So really, being that sort of local port of call that you can come to, that you can trust, that can help you navigate through all of the difficult things that everybody's dealing with.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nicky. So just a huge thank you to Tristan, Kate and Nicky. Thank you very much for being amazing panel members. Thank you for the presentations, and thanks everybody for questions. And I'll sign off now. Bye, everybody.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. And I know you can stay with us for the rest of the day. So it's very clear. We've spent a lot of time this morning on business related topics, and again, it's important that we don't lose the sight that business is the engine room that allows us to do so many more things. And you've seen already the positive sort of vibes and the way that Tristan particularly is looking at that regeneration piece. I'm delighted to be working more closely with the LEP now than we've done it in our history. And equally, when I look at the work that Nicky and I have done with FSB and Shaping, again, it's a great partnership. We're doing it together. And I think if you remember, those are the two of the words I was going to be using. So thank you, Mark, and thank you, panel. And